The phantom stared off into the sunset. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said out loud. Shortly after, a long shadow stretched out from under him. The shadow grew two big, white eyes and a dozen crooked teeth. It spoke. "It's a bit too, bright for my tastes," the phantom replied. "You hate anything with color." The creature replied back, "Well, I am a lightless demon that feeds on people's despair. Remember?" The phantom laughed. "I haven't forgotten." "Hey, Ratuk asked. "Yes?" "I don't think I ever did, but, I want to apologize for trying to kill you and torture Sam and overthrow his entire species and, all that. I've already forgiven you. And, back there you said that I belong with my kin, but what do you mean by that?" Suddenly, there was a scream off in the distance. "Sounds like trouble," the phantom said. He pulled a small golden stopwatch out of his pocket. "You know the drill, Ratuk." The shadow jumped back and said, "Why do you always have to keep me in that thing?" The phantom responded, "So you don't accidentally absorb someone's life force and try to escape." He clicked the button on the watch, and the creature was sucked back inside. He put the watch away and readied himself for the coming battle. Ratuk sat inside a distant void. "Even after everything we've been through, he still doesn't trust me," he said to himself. Suddenly, he heard a voice. "And you shouldn't trust him either." A man in purple armor emerged. "I am Lord Krotak, and you're going to help me kill the blind phantom." Meanwhile, Audrey Simmons sat at her computer, logged into a chat room. Everyone there had at most one story about how they were saved by the blind phantom. They were discussing a place and time to meet up. But right as they settled it, Audrey's mother entered the room. Audrey jumped up and turned off her computer as quickly as she could, but it was too late. Her mother was already suspicious. "Sweetie, what were you doing?" "Nothing, Mom. It's just homework." "Then why did you turn it off so fast?" "You came barging in here. You scared me." "Audrey, tell me the truth." "I am, Mom." "Audrey, you weren't talking to those people again, were you?" "Mom, I swear it's not—" "Look, Audrey, I know you're upset. After your father passed away, you've been a very different person, and maybe you think sharing delusions with strangers is a healthy way to deal with it, but honey, it's not." "Mom, it's not like that." "I'm sorry, honey, but this has to stop. You're not going anywhere tonight." The phantom looked above him. It was a tall monster made of pink smoke. It yelled out, "I am the Rage Master! Anyone who breathes my perilous fumes will become consumed with rage!" The phantom made a fist and attempted to punch Rage. However, due to his gaseous form, he couldn't land a single hit. Then, crowds of people began emerging. They had furious expressions on their faces. The Rage Master shouted out, "Destroy him, my pawns!" The hypnotized civilians swarmed the phantom, hitting him with everything they had. But deep within the phantom's watch was another story. "Tell me, do you know what makes a rift so dangerous?" Lord Krotak asked. No," Ratuk replied. "Because rifts can grow larger and larger until they consume entire planets. I just learned how to create them, but only small ones. You, on the other hand, have the power to feed them, make them stronger. And let me guess, you want me to train enough people to power your doomsday weapon. First of all, how am I supposed to help if I'm trapped in this stupid literal pocket dimension? Second, where are we gonna get that many souls? And last, and most importantly, what's in it for me? If you help me, I can give you endless worlds to feed on. And as for souls, I have a plan for that. The Phantom struggled against the zombies. What will I do? He thought to himself. I can't hurt them. They're innocent. But maybe I won't have to. He focused his energy and harnessed a wind elemental. The wind began interfering with the Rage Master's fog. No! No! He screamed as his body slowly faded away. The crowds of people regained consciousness, but were still confused by where they were. The Phantom quickly fled the scene. Once he was far enough away from the public, he took out his magic stopwatch and released Ratuk. Immediately, he noticed something was off. Ratuk, are you all right? The shadow replied. Oh, I'm swell, Jamie. Suddenly, the Phantom was overwhelmed by old memories and emotions. Impossible, he thought. How does he know my real name? While his guard was down, Ratuk shot forward and began draining the Phantom's life. Ratuk! No! He couldn't escape. This was it. Audrey sat by her bed, sadly knowing she would never know the truth about the blind Phantom. Maybe I'm just destined to fail, she thought to herself. Maybe I'm destined to give up. But then, she remembered her encounter with the Phantom. That was the bravest moment in her life. That was the moment she learned how to take a risk. And then she realized, if it had worked then, who's to say it won't work now? So, she very slowly, very carefully, unlocked her bedroom window. She slid it open and cautiously crawled through. It was midnight, so not many people would see her. She looked back at her house and whispered, I'm sorry, Mom, but I have to do this. The Phantom opened his eyes. He was in a cold, dark cave. His arms and legs were chained to the walls. These were no ordinary chains. He could not break through them. Floating in front of him was a rift. Ratuk slid out from nowhere. He pointed to the rift and said, See that? It's small now, but once I feed it enough energy, it'll consume the world. And you, Jamie Lancaster, have centuries of fear and regret bottled in you. How do you know my real name? No one knows my real name. Everyone who does is dead. Not everyone. Your old pal, Samson Griller. No, can't be. That's what I want to see. Ratuk stretched out all his tentacles and wrapped them around the blind Phantom. He began to see visions of his past as if he were reliving it all. Griller told me all about you, Jamie. Your name was Jamie Lancaster. You and Samson Griller were students of a very old man. He was a wizard, wasn't he? He promised to teach you magic. Oh, but you didn't like waiting, so you stole the old man's research and coaxed Samson into helping you cast a forbidden enchantment. Only you didn't know it was forbidden. Not yet, anyway. It was said the enchantment would draw power from another dimension. Unfortunately, the spell was only half successful. You were infused with most of the magic, whereas Samson had been lost to the other side. Not only that, but demons from that realm began spilling into this world. And so, consumed by guilt and regret, you vowed to spend an eternity fighting off the monsters you helped free. Ratuk's powers were making the Phantom feel the same guilt he felt all those centuries ago. Audrey stopped by an old train track. She looked around, but didn't see anyone else there. Maybe this was a bad idea, she thought. Maybe I should just... Suddenly, a voice interrupted her thoughts. You're here about the blind phantom, aren't you? Audrey whirled around. Behind her was a boy. He was tall and wearing a high school football jacket. My name is Troy. That's why I'm here too, he said. Then more people stepped into view. A skinny young adult named Corey, a girl with short dark hair named Alex, and a man with ginger hair and glasses named Richard. Audrey looked around at everyone. They were all finally together. Why, Ratuk? Why betray me? The Phantom called out. Why? Let me think. Oh, I know. Maybe because you imprisoned me. If you had just let me go, let me out to some random universe, everything would have been fine. I would be able to go wherever I wanted. You and Sam would never see me again. Everyone's happy, but no, you had to keep me prisoner. All because you were lonely. It's not like that, Ratuk. I wanted to help you, show you a better way. If you went to another world, you would have just kept tormenting people. That life won't bring happiness. Ratuk looked down, considering what the Phantom had told him. After a brief pause, he spoke. It's too late for that now. It's never too late. Ratuk didn't say anything. He just closed his eyes and shook his head. He turned to the rift, reached inside, and began to tear it open. It continued stretching larger and larger. A shape took form inside the vortex. It was the silhouette of a large man. Lord Krotak stepped forward. Hello, Jamie, he said in a deep voice. Dear God, Jamie responded. Samson? What happened to you? Krotak frowned. Then he furiously yelled, Samson is dead! You killed him. I am only here to avenge his memory. He held out a pink orb wrapped around a wood-like vine. This is the Orb of Oculus. It can do many things. Let me show you my favorite. The strange orb began to extract large amounts of energy from Jamie's body. The energy was fed to the rift, which began to grow much faster. Ratuk's guilt grew. Eventually, he just couldn't handle it anymore. He swiftly slipped out of the cave and into the night. Krotak was so amused by Jamie's defeat, he hadn't even noticed Ratuk was gone. Audrey sat with her new friends. They laughed, talked, and told stories. Everyone understood each other. For the first time in forever, Audrey didn't feel alone. For that one moment, she felt as though she belonged. But in an instant, it was all gone. Purple lightning began flashing overhead. The group scrambled to take cover. But then, they realized something. There was no rain. Lightning without any rain. It all seemed to be coming from the woods. The same woods Audrey had killed the tentacle creature. But the woods weren't the only thing about the lightning that reminded her of the phantom. It gave off this energy, this feeling of wonder and terror. Guys, she asked, unsure of her own question, does that lightning look familiar? She began to feel embarrassed in front of her new friends, but surprisingly they agreed with her. They felt that same connection to this unusual phenomenon. And so, like moths to a flame, the group moved closer and closer to the bizarre sight, until they came to a large, dark cave. I'm sorry, Samson. I admit it. What I did to you was wrong. What happened to you was wrong, Jamie pleaded. Krotak laughed in mockery. You told me the enchantment was safe. Told me it would bring us great fortune. But you're a liar. It's in your blood. Out of nowhere, voices echoed through the cave. What the hell? What's going on? Is that him? Samson turned around. It was Audrey and her group. They had found them. Oh, would you look at that? Everyone else you ever lied to. Jamie shouted. Stay away from them, you monster! Audrey and her friend stared in disbelief. It's him, she whispered to herself. It's really him. Richard took notice of Samson's malicious intent. He spoke up, saying, we should probably get out of here. Lord Krotak reached out his hand. Smoke emerged from his palm. The group tried to get away, but the smoke followed them. It struck the ceiling of the cave, causing it to collapse. Corey's leg was crushed by a large piece of debris. The crew were now sealed in with Samson. There was no escape. Oh God, what are we gonna do? Alex screamed in terror. Now, Samson spoke in a sinister tone. I'm going to peel the flesh off your bones. Troy stepped forward and bravely said, I'm not letting you hurt them. Samson grabbed Troy by the neck and lifted him up. I'm sorry, you were saying? Audrey noticed the phantom chained to the cave wall. That's when she knew what to do. She turned to Alex and Richard and told them, Guys, listen, I have a plan. I know we haven't known each other for very long, but please, just listen to me. Audrey whispered to them a quick summary of her plan. Then she swiftly snuck across the cave. Alex and Richard yelled at Samson in an attempt to distract him. Audrey rushed over to the phantom and tried to use a hairpin to pick the lock on his chain. Audrey, Jamie muttered. How did you find me? Audrey replied with, just had that feeling again. Now, let's see if I can... She continued fiddling with a small padlock, but with no success. Don't waste your energy, Jamie said. I'm weakened. Even if you do free me, I will stand no chance. Besides, I created that monster. This is my punishment. Audrey was taken aback by this. She didn't believe it was possible for him to say something like that. What do you mean? You can't say that. You're supposed to have all the answers. I lied. Audrey Simmons, I lied. I don't know anything. I'm just a pathetic fool. Audrey sighed. Then she looked up. She saw Troy, Alex, and Richard still trying to fight off Samson. He was able to easily knock them down, but every time he did, they would just come back. Then Audrey quietly said, Look at them. They won't give up, no matter what. You saved them, and now they're determined to save you. If you don't believe in that, then you're not the blind phantom. Jamie closed his eyes and stayed silent. When he opened them up again, he was stronger than ever before. He broke his chains like they were cardboard and stood triumphantly. He turned to Audrey and said, If you will excuse me, I have some catching up to do with an old friend. Samson was holding Richard down. His gauntleted hand was raised above, readying to crush his skull. But before he could, a voice called out, "Let him go, you fiend!" Samson turned around and looked at the phantom. He spoke again. "We're right about one thing. Samson really is dead. And soon you'll be joining him. I already have. I'm a phantom." The two beings charged towards each other and collided like an explosion. Samson pulled out the strange purple orb and said, "So you've gotten your strength back. Now I can drain it all over again." The phantom slammed his fist against Samson's face, causing him to drop the orb. "There, now it's a fair fight," the phantom said tauntingly. Samson summoned a long gray sword. It was covered in scratches and dried bloodstains. The phantom summoned his own weapon as well. It was much shinier and more elegant. The two repeatedly clashed together. Sparks flew all across the cave. Both competitors would frequently cut their opponent. In moments, they were covered in gashes and wounds, but they kept fighting. They fought until their swords were soaked in blood. They fought until their blades shattered, and even then, they still fought. Eventually, Samson spoke. "What do I need to make you see the truth? You're not the hero," the phantom said back. "I know, but neither are you." Samson growled and lunged forth. The phantom grabbed him and shoved him aside. The phantom looked at the rift to the other world. It had gotten dangerously large. In moments, the cave would be filled with monsters and demons. He remembered what he had told Ratuk. He belongs with his own kin. In that moment, he knew what to do. He slammed Samson against the ground, temporarily knocking him out. He found where the orb of Oculus had landed and picked it up. He ran over to Audrey and told her, "I have a plan to defeat him, but I'll need your help." "What do you need me to do?" she asked. "I'm going to force him back into the rift, and I need you to point the orb at it and repeat these words." After telling Audrey the magic words, she asked, "Wait, what will happen to you?" "This isn't important. We can't let him escape into your world." "No, I'm not letting you die. You have to. But I need you. I don't know how I can go on without you. If you don't, everyone will die." Audrey wiped away tears, then said, "Okay, I'll do it." Samson stood up and oriented himself. He saw the phantom standing in front of him. The phantom said, "It's time to end this, Samson." Samson cracked his knuckles and said, "I know." The two charged at each other once more, and they continued to violently wrestle. Outside the cave, another battle was going on. This one, however, was not being fought with force, but instead with reason. Ratuk didn't know what to think anymore. He betrayed the one person who had ever trusted him. All his life he made others suffer. Now he was the one suffering. Why can't I ever do the right thing? What did he mean by kin? Other demons? Other shadows? I just want to get out of this place. Just one final act of cruelty. Then I can finally leave this universe and start a new life. And maybe then I'll finally start doing good. Yeah, after. Yeah. Oh, what am I kidding? Hang on, Jamie. I'm coming to save you. The phantom had gotten hold of Samson. He threw him next to the rift and continued fighting. He slowly pushed Samson back through the gate. Samson cried out, "What are you doing? Stop!" Ratuk entered the cave. What the hell is going on in here? He saw Jamie dragging Samson into the portal. What is he doing? Is he insane? The Phantom yelled at Samson. I'm giving us both what we deserve. Imprisonment. Now, Audrey! Ratuk considered intervening, but hesitated. Audrey lifted up the orb of Oculus and yelled out the enchantment over and over again. Samson was completely on the other side of the rift. The Phantom turned around, smiled, and said, Thank you, Audrey Simmons. He disappeared inside the vortex. Then it slowly shrank until it was gone. Audrey dropped the orb. It had left burn marks on her hands, but she hadn't noticed. A single teardrop fell from her face. She squeezed her eyes shut and thought to herself, this isn't what he wants. The blind Phantom would want me to stay strong, to keep going, to... She noticed something. A strange feeling. She felt lighter than air, and more energetic than a battery. When she opened her eyes, everything was different. She could see energy itself, all of it, passing through the earth, through her, through everything. She looked at the orb. It must have done something to her. Her eyes were once a dull brown. Now they were a brilliant red. Her dirty blonde hair was now whiter than snow. She turned to her friends. They gasped in fear and confusion at her appearance. She slowly stood up and said, Don't worry, it's me. This seemed to put them at ease. She approached the group and looked down at Corey. He was still injured. She kneeled down next to him and said to the others, I think I can help him. She looked around the cave and saw little bursts of light popping in and out of existence. Can you see those? She asked Richard. No, he answered. Audrey plucked one of the dots from the air and placed it on Corey's leg. The light began to elongate and spread throughout his entire body. How do you feel? She asked him. Corey wiggled his leg, then stood up. Like I can run a whole damn marathon, he exclaimed. Before the rest of the gang could celebrate, Audrey stopped them. She felt another presence in the cave, one that wasn't like the rest of them, one that wasn't human. Audrey whirled around, and standing there, looming above them, holding the orb of Oculus, was a large black shadow. It looked down at them with droopy, almost sad eyes. It opened its mouth as if about to say something, but hesitated. Instead, the creature simply turned and vanished. Audrey turned back to her friends. Troy asked, So, what now? Audrey thought for a moment. Then she looked up and said, Now, we find that thing and kick its ass. The group cheered triumphantly. Then Troy said, No, seriously, how do we get out of this cave?